Hello everybody, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Elizabethan era, and more importantly, the architectural advancements that came with it. You see, the Elizabethan era spanned from 1558 to 1603, named after Queen Elizabeth I's time in the throne. Now with this era came a lot of great things, including, but not limited to, advancements in art, literature, exploration, and even self-expression. But in this video, we're going to be specifying it a little more, taking a look at 10 facts regarding the architecture within this time period. Again, this might not be an upload anyone was expecting, but regardless, I hope you're somehow able to sit back and enjoy 10 facts about architecture in the Elizabethan era. The Tutor Style. The Elizabethan era saw a lot of homes follow inspiration from the Tudor style, and if you don't know what that is, it's when houses use half-timbering for their designs, which is when the framework of a home would be made out of timber, and the spaces between each wood frame would be filled with some other material, typically with wattle and daub, but sometimes brickwork as well. These timber beams were definitely made and designed for structural integrity, but they were actually pretty heavily designed to be for show too, by using interesting colors and patterns with fine dark finishes to capture some attention. The designs also heavily relied on grandeur from the contrast of its design by using materials that are each unique and different compared to each other. For example, the dark timber and the wattle and daub would stand out and create a pretty interesting contrastal effect. Oh, and fun fact, if you haven't caught on, the timber beams in question that we speak of are actually on the outside of the house as well, not just the inside. What an interesting design choice. Jetties and overhangs. Jetties and overhangs were a way for architects to add more living space to the second story of a home without restricting themselves to the bounds of the first story's floor plan. This would be done for the obvious reason of providing more space for home residents, but it also helped foster some other things like motivating people to open shops and stores and workshops under the jetty due to the shade and cover that it provided. Jetties also became a way for people to know you were quite well off. If you had a jetty, you were probably a successful merchant or something of the sort. Here's a picture of a jetty in the Elizabethan era. And to accompany it, here's a picture of a modern-day jetty. I wonder how much longer it would have taken people like us to conceptualize such modern house designs if we didn't have the innovative people before us who were able to create such designs in their time period back then. Greater chimneys. The Elizabethan era took chimneys and made it much more important than just an essential component within a home for ventilation. Rather, they gave it a lot of importance in helping the design of houses appear greater. What that means is that chimneys of this time period had to have much more impressive designs, like things that featured a spiraled neck, linear patterns, carved emblems, sculpted shapes, molded symbols, and much, much more. Honestly, the designs are so jaw-dropping that I can't even express the extent of its impressiveness without showing you some images here. Just take a look at that. Chimneys went from being a bare-boned feature of a house to being whole pieces of artwork that boasted the creative ability of this time period's masterminds. Mullioned windows. This time period saw a huge trend in mullioned windows, which are windows divided by vertical bars placed between the panes of window glass, also known as mullions. These mullions gave structural support to the arch of a window, but were also used to create nice patterns and effects, or even help separate the glass in a way so that they can stain the glass in different colors, and keep it looking proper. With that said, it's pretty clear that mullions were for both structure and ornament. The typical mullioned window goes as followed. A paired window is built beneath an arch of a building, then separated by a mullion. Here's a little fact though, these dividers were created mainly with wood and stone, though other materials could often be used instead of those. Gabled roofs. A gabled roof is a roof that has two slopes that meet at the top of a house and also form a triangular shape at each end of the building. They often extrude past the end of the home that they go along with. In this era of artistic prosperity, gabled roofs inevitably became decorative, featuring elaborate carvings, intricate tracery, and other ornamental details to adorn the gabled roofs. This became yet another way for artists to show off their craftsmanship and creativity. It makes me wonder, what motivated the people of this time to make all these things like gabled roofs so artistically inspired? Well, the Renaissance coinciding with the Elizabethan era revived the ambition for expression and intellectual pursuits. This time period made people heavily value creativity and skill. With that said, it makes them attribute art to pretty much anything. But it's impressive that this beautiful mindset affected even the most mundane things like a gabled roof. Innyards. Innyards became extremely trendy during the Elizabethan era. to accommodate travelers and to provide entertainment for both them and the locals. It was pretty much a social hub of sorts at this time period. Inn-yards were built with a courtyard layout, featuring an open space outside surrounded by buildings in most directions. In the central courtyard, there were many activities to be enjoyed, but it was also mainly to be a relaxing communal area. You know how I mentioned how there were buildings around the courtyards? Well, these buildings could provide venues like food, drink, and even theatrical entertainment, which is pretty impressive to build into that little area. Facilities for stabling horses were also built in these courtyard areas. The buildings around the central outside area were also usually 1 to 3 stories tall, but occasionally 4. These structures were a very interesting take on the inn concept, created specifically with overflowing guests in mind, to accommodate for them and to show them the artistic beauty of the Elizabethan era. Flamboyantly bigger houses. This time period and its prosperity served as exigence for people to go above and beyond with their houses, creating bigger, fancier, and more expensive homes to establish their confidence in their prosperity. The Elizabethan era and its respective success most definitely influenced wealthy people by steering them away from being okay with settling down with a normal, non-decorative house. Nope. This influenced the architectural style by making people decide to scale bigger, make their projects greater, to consume more land and space. See, the elite now had desire to make a bold statement of their presence through their house. They felt way more motivated to showcase their social status through commissioning builders to make much bigger homes, which reflects an architectural trend of now making bigger houses, thanks to this era. Thatched roofs. Now, in contrast to the powerful, wealthy elite, there were middle and lower class people whose homes featured thatched roofs. These were made with straws, reeds, or both, and other types of vegetations. People would bundle these things together and pile the bundles onto the frame of the roof and compact it. Houses with these roofs showed up more in rural areas, but could occasionally be seen in urban areas, though it was very, very rare. These roofs would actually do a pretty good job at providing insulation, but there's obviously a lot of setbacks to cheap options like this. The materials easily absorb water and can lead to the thatch becoming heavier and heavier from having all that water stored in, which increases the burden that the structure of the house has to put up with. Additionally, it is most definitely a fire hazard. So as affordable as it was in this time period, which made it very widespread, it's still pretty clear to see why it was the option for the less well-off. Similarity to the past. Here's a fun fact. The architecture of middle-class homes in the Elizabethan era were actually quite similar to traditional medieval-styled houses, albeit with a few key differences. For example, the Elizabethan houses are framed with big vertical timbers mentioned way earlier in this video, and also feature higher chimneys than the medieval houses. But other than that, the differences are actually quite minor, both interior and exteriorly. Here's one final fun fact about architecture in the Elizabethan era that I have for you. It inspired so much more architectural design that was to come in the future. A lot of trends and practices actually lived through the eras to come, like the Jacobean era, the Caroline era, and even more eras into the future. Some practices are actually still alive today. The works of art that these people did have a huge imprint on people's view of architecture, building, and creation, and we can see that when we go outside and look around us and observe the architecture in our world. We can clearly see that this era had so much impact on our minds and paved the way for our creativity to shine even more. And that's gonna be all for today. I really hope you guys enjoyed watching this upload, and I hope I was able to educate you on just how important the architecture of this time period was. It really is just amazing to break down and see how specific and creative some of these design choices were. And maybe you'll be inspired too. Maybe after watching this video, you'll be able to see a little bit of the Elizabethan era anytime you get a spark of inspiration. Thanks for watching.